Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have another one of our favorite guests. We have Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our forensically, our organizational, and our clinically trained psychologist. She is much more than that. She is the president and co-founder of A.M. Associates Incorporated. She is the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated. She is the past president of the Michigan Psychological Association Foundation Board, the Metro Detroit Association of Black Psychologists. And if all of that wasn't enough, she is an author, musician, and a trustee of the Michigan Health Council. Good evening and welcome to the show, Dr. Angie. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good evening, Kim. It's great to be here. Pardon my voice in advance to tell your listeners and watchers, getting over a little cold. So other than my husky voice, I'm doing well.
Great, great, great. And it is that season. So this evening we're talking about balance and our mindsets because this is a time of year when we're all very busy. But before we get into that, who's that's with you?
This beautiful lady here.
Yes.
Isn't she gorgeous?
She is.
She is. She's a beautiful angel, and you can see her wings here. She's a black angel with her locks and twists here.
Mm-hmm.
I've had her for many years. I've had her for golly, a couple decades, really. Back in the days, for those of you around the Detroit area, you may be familiar with Marygrove College. So I'm a Marygrove College grad, and I taught at Marygrove College. So back in the days when I was president of the Black Psychologists Association Metro Detroit chapter, we hosted Kwanzaa's every year, and we hosted Juneteenth. And I remember one of the last ones that we did before I stepped down as president, these beautiful angels, different types, different styles were on the tables that the college had put out. And it was a lovely lady, Gail Spencer, who always helped me coordinate that stuff. She worked for Marygrove, and I was getting ready to leave. It was the last one we did, I believe, back in the 2000s, I believe. And she said, this is always such a wonderful event for the community. You should take this with you. So I was like, oh, she's so gorgeous. So yeah, there are her wings. She's a
Beautiful.
part of our holiday decorations, our Christmas decorations at home every year. So I bring out this beautiful African angel. You asked me a great question before we came on. You said, "What's her name?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have never really actually named her. We'll call her our Black Angel for now."
I love it. I love it. All right, Dr. Angie, let's get right into our topic. The holiday seasons are here. That means holiday parties, Christmas parties, Hanukkah parties, all kinds of different celebrations are happening. And I don't know if you're like me. I had four work engagements, actually I had five holiday work engagements to go to. Mm. And I remember by the time I got to number 5, I was like, "Ooh, I'm tired." And, I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends. We talk about being busy. Mm-hmm. We're all just busy, 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 busy. And whenever someone says, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Girl, I'm busy." Or, "Man, I'm busy. I just, I got this, and this." And I think, especially in America, we have gotten to this point where busyness is a badge of honor. And then when you add the holidays onto it, it becomes even more because there's expectations from family. And I know people who are like, "Work is so hard," or "I'm in school," or "I have small children," or "I have whatever the responsibility is. But my grandma expects me to be at Christmas dinner," or "we have a Christmas Eve tradition," or whatever, or somebody's doing a brunch, or "we got to have," and they're like, "I just want to rest." And so I started thinking, I said, is there a line with balance between being busy for the sake of being busy, or is there a line with being busy with a purpose? And this is kind of a multi-part question. And if so, how should we reset our focus? And I'll re-ask that question again if it's a little confusing.
Okay. I'll ask if I've gotten off track or if I'm following what you're asking.
Okay.
I would say definitely there is a line or a few lines, perhaps, between busy with a purpose, like you said, and busy just for the sake of being busy. I'll start with that part of it.
Yes.
The reason I say a few lines is because the line between the two can move depending
Mm-hmm.
on circumstances, what's going on in your life at that particular time, etc. So, for example, um, if you got small kids, like you said, or kids have their own lives, even the little bitty ones, that they have their Christmas shows to be in, or they have their things that they're going to, the school plays or whatever the case. um, and so you have to keep up with their schedules. You have to keep up with what they might, if they're involved in their synagogue or church, you got to keep up with their schedules. You got to go and shop for them, and also there's what the kids need. There are the things that you need, like you mentioned, for work, for your engagements, etc., spouses, etc., family obligations. And if you happen to be part of what they call the sandwich generation, where you're also a
Mm-hmm.
caregiver for some of your elders, as well as your kids, there's even more. So it's a lot of busyness I would use that those as examples of busyness with a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
getting things done, helping people to get what they need, etc., for this time of year, as well as for yourself. um, Busyness just for the sake of being busy, it can look like, I'm not saying this is always the case, but it can look like, but we'll just say, for an example, let's say that you are not working at this time, or maybe you're retired and you fill your days with community work, volunteering. We know people who are busier now that they're retired than they ever were in all
Yes.
the projects they were doing while they're working. So it could be an example of busyness, for the sake of being busy. So the reason I say that the line moves is because, particularly if you're busy doing things that give back to the community, that's definitely important, and that has purpose, and it has value. There's no doubt about it. But taking that same example, sometimes people will involve themselves in those things. While it's a wonderful thing to give back, for sure, they'll involve themselves in those things for the sake of being busy, as well as in addition to the purpose of it, to
Mm-hmm.
distract themselves sometimes from their own loneliness, from regrets they may have, from other issues going on that maybe they're not prepared to or ready to deal with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that can be the same for the first example. All of those things about caring for our kids, um, our work obligations, those are all quote unquote legitimate, not to grade anyone, but they also can be used, even though they have purpose, they can also be used for similar kinds of things, to pile on extra, to be extra busy, it, as a form of distraction, as a form of, keeping yourself from having being to deal with certain things mentally and emotionally. I'll give you one example of that. If you take the first one about, your kids, etc., while all of those are real, sometimes there'll be that parent that always they're busy, but they always volunteer for
Yes.
all the carpools, for all the parent,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
take on more, even more. Does that mean they're trying to distract themselves or just for the sake of being busy? No, but it can be an example of that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I say it depends on the reasons why we're doing it and what purpose it might serve, or purposes.
And those are great points. So the other part of that question is, if someone is struggling with that, what are some things that people should do or think about or keep in mind to help reset their focus?
Um, I think that one of the most important things we need to do, uh, is something we should hopefully try to do all year long, regardless of the time of year. And that is regularly check in with ourselves to see
Mhm.
how we're doing, how we're feeling, to be honest with ourselves about if we really are tired or exhausted, asking ourselves some questions, because sometimes we don't know the reasons why. We haven't yet. We've been so busy filling time, again, even if it's for, real and valuable purposes, um, we don't sometimes we don't take the time to check in with ourselves. So we may not have some of those answers, but it is important to ask questions. How am I really feeling? Do I really need to take this on? Am I feeling pressure to take this on? If
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling pressure, where is it coming from? Is it coming from grandma to go to Christmas Eve? And you still might, and you might, this is the thing to keep in mind too. Sometimes if the answer is that I'm putting pressure on myself, or I recognize it's coming from a relative or wherever the case, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to go and do. You might still go and do, but it helps to take some of the pressure and stress off if we have a better idea of why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we feel that we are personally motivated to do it. So, you know how you might do the same thing. You're still gonna go to the Christmas Eve traditional celebration with the family. Like
Right.
if you still go. But you know how it can feel different if it'll feel like you're dragging yourself. If you feel you're doing it out of external pressure, like, because it feels like I just have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Mm-hmm.
pause to ask yourself questions and you find from asking yourself questions that, and when I really think about it, I am tired, but going to grandma's Christmas Eve celebration really means a lot to me too. Then you could, yes, you're still tired and you may still go, but because you find the value in it for yourself and you realize that it is something that's important to you as well as grandma, in addition, and that you really get a lot out of it, you can feel less stressed because you don't feel like you're being made to go. You feel
Mm-hmm.
like, this is important to me. And of course, you may decide not to go and set, whatever the case may be. But checking in with ourselves, asking how you feel. Is this real something I really need to do? Is it something I really want to do? And then what goes hand in hand with that is the whys. Well, why am I doing it? Um, if you feel like it's sometimes asking these questions, it may be the first time in say 15 years or a few years or
Mm-hmm.
months or whatever that you really step back and realize, you know what, maybe I've changed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is something that used to, be of value to me, but or maybe I used to enjoy it, but maybe I just don't anymore. So checking with ourselves, asking questions, risking, I say that in quotes, trying to be honest with ourselves. And also it's important, I think, not to berate ourselves. We talk about giving ourselves grace, give
Mm-hmm.
yourself permission to be tired, give yourself permission to, say it's okay to stay home sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're not going to be that parent that drives everyone or, all the carpools or whatever the case may be. Um, and acknowledging it's important to give ourselves time and take time for ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
And all that's important.
And you're absolutely right. Those are very important because the flip side of it is burnout.
Yeah.
And burnout is real. And one of the signals for me to realize that I had burnout was having irritation, irritation at everything.
Yeah.
Somebody, people don't meet your expectations, no matter how minor it is.
Mhm.
You go to the store and you're looking for something and they don't have it, and you're like, doggone it. You're getting extra upset
Mhm.
or more irritated or more frustrated over something than you normally would.
Mhm.
How should some and maybe this is just a reminder, but you talked about checking in with yourselves. And
Yes.
I think it's easier said than done because sometimes people feel like, and I've been here at this point where I'm
Mhm.
like, but nobody's going to do it. I have to do it. And
Yes.
so it's me putting pressure on myself, not giving myself grace,
Mhm.
burning myself out. So on one end, I'm angry because there's no one else to do it. But
Mhm.
then on the other hand, I'm angry because I'm forcing myself to do it, although I feel like it's everybody else, when reality, we can
Mhm.
only control what we do. And
Yes.
until you come to that recognition, you don't understand. But Dr. Angie, will you talk about if someone is in the midst of burnout, some things that could help them?
Absolutely. One thing that can help you if you're in the midst of burnout, that can also help you to avoid, try to avoid burnout as well, but before you get there. And that is, um, in addition to our relationship to ourselves, with ourselves, and those honest conversations, our
Mhm.
support networks are so important. One of the things I was thinking about when you were asking this question was about how when you have the one or two like really trusted people, in your circle, whether it's a family member, close friend, whomever, who will honestly, honestly really cares about you and honestly give you feedback. I know sometimes I'll say out loud, I bounce things off my husband. So I'll say it out loud, like,
Mhm.
oh man, I really I don't want to go, I'm so tired. I've gone to so many, blah, blah. And, he will often say, you don't have to. You like, you really are tired.
Mhm.
Um, and it's amazing how that, if you're not quite, like you were saying, putting pressure on ourselves, if you're not quite able to give yourself that permission, getting it from somebody else can help. It was like, it
Mhm.
feels like permission is like, yeah, you're right. Like, you're right. So leaning
Mhm.
on it, and in the midst of burnout, also leaning on our trusted networks around us to if you trust them, if they've been a support to you all this time, don't be afraid to ask for some help. And then this is the key second part of that. Don't be afraid to take them up on it when you ask for when they offer it. That could be a hard part. That could be a hard one, right? So asking for help, saying, you know what, can you please go and do this for me? Can you please go and do you mind do you have some time on such and such afternoon to drive my mom to whatever it is or whoever, whatever the case may be. Um, it can be amazing how people are who want to help you because they love you, who are in your support circle, um, and you trust them. So lean on that. That can help a lot. And something else that can help when you're in the midst of burnout is taking time to recognize some of the, I guess you could say, the steps towards you getting burned out in the first place. And one of
Mhm.
those things that many of us have had to work on, we may have in common, is learning how to say no and what to say no to.
Mhm.
That can be a science and an art in itself, and it
Yes.
can take some doing. But like anything else, as we practice it, it can get more comfortable. Learning how to say no and learning how to say no without feeling bad or guilty.
Mhm.
Sometimes that may
Mhm.
not come until a little later with some practice, but it's important. That's important, even when you're in the midst of burnout, because what you don't want to do is after you've taken your break, come back out of burnout. You're refreshed and everything. You want to try to keep from going back into it again. Um,
Mhm.
and another thing also, those things are important as well, because even if you're in the midst of burnout, unfortunately, we can actually still make it even worse. So
Mhm.
don't want to get to the place where we're feeling burned out, overly stressed, just frazzled. And then what makes it worse is we're just like flogging and beating ourselves because
Absolutely.
I'm so weak and I'm so, how dare I actually take an afternoon off or whatever the case.
Mhm.
But yeah, those things are important. Recognizing the things that you need in day-to-day and week-to-week life to feel refreshed and not being afraid to actually, again, exercising those things, putting those things into place, whether it's like, having one evening a week where it's just yours, let your friends and family know you're not answering the phone unless it's urgent. If something's on fire, that's different. Um,
Mhm.
take time for yourself or whoever, close family, whatever it is, read, go to the movies, just have a chill, like nothing on the schedule. Of even a few hours can go a long way if you're in the middle of burnout to help you feel a little refreshed, um, as well as to keep you from feeling burned out in the future.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I'll say too about burnout as well, when you're in the midst of it, as much as you can, because I know we have life obligations, but
Mhm.
as much as you can, try not to put too much of a time frame on when you'll feel better because it can be
Ah.
a process.
Mhm.
Definitely be a process. And of course, people don't always have the luxury of that in a holistic, like in every part of your life.
Mhm.
You still need to go to work every day, but maybe you take a break from, I don't know what, make sure that your kids still get to the park if you have a trusted person, but maybe you don't do that for a few days or something.
Mhm.
Or you'll get back to that next week. You'll just try to keep some of those time frames a little loose for yourself. So you don't say, I have to be back on it, such and such. Other than those things that you really are obligated to do, of course. And then if possible, for those things you're obligated to do. There are jobs that do have time off. There are jobs that, everyone can't do that, of course, but you find those places in your life where you can take rest and build in rest through the day or through the week and give yourself time to feel better when you feel better, like whatever that is, and feed in the positives along the way to help you on that journey of coming back, healing, I'll say, from burnout. Remind yourself of your value, how much you do that makes such a difference to people, even if people don't always acknowledge it. All of those things, I think, are helpful when you're in the middle of burnout, and to try to help keep you from getting there and to try to help keep you from going back into it once you heal from it.
Excellent, Dr. Angie. This is why we talk to you,
Oh,
because you give us all the wonderful information and you are so knowledgeable and you
thank
help us
you.
keep on track. Thank you so much, Dr. Angie. That was a great way to end our show.
Thank you. I always love talking with you.
I love talking with you. It is December
Yeah.
2023. So I want to wish from my family to yours happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to seeing you in January 2024. So before we get out of here, Dr. Angie,
Yeah.
please tell us where we can find you. Tell us how we can find you on social media, and then give us all the information on all the things that you do. Talk about your books, your music, all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I always appreciate that. Um, you can find me on most of the socials. There are so many now, but um, either Angela Celeste May or Dr. Angela Celeste May on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or a little bit. I'm on Twitter still, X, now known as X, as like I said, Angela Celeste May or Dr. Angela Celeste May. I am on those both as just as me, the musician, and then also as me, the psychologist as well. So my company with my sister, Michelle May, is A.M. as in Michelle May and Associates Incorporated. We do counseling, consulting, and coaching. And so you can find us on amassociates.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook also. Um, for my music company, Celeste Productions. I have a page on reverbnation.com/Angela Celeste May. And also Dr. Angela Celeste May on Facebook, showing what I'm doing musically these days. I have a book. Where's my book? Here it is. I have a book called Freedom. Here it is. Freedom. And the secondary title, What is the Experience of Living Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations? This was a research study that I did. I interviewed a group of people from a broad range of backgrounds, and there were 7 main themes that came out of it for resilience and how we can bounce back. I've also written and produced 2 albums of original music. One is called No Limits. The second one is called Reintroducing the Lady. You can find them both on Apple, iTunes, I should say, Amazon, just several places. Just type in those titles and my name. Right now, I am resting. I'm resting as we finish out December. I had opportunity just before I lost my voice to sing. I was asked to sing uh, Ave Maria, which I just love, at the Blessed Sacrament Cathedral for a funeral of a very well-known, long time musician. She was 108 years old.
Wow,
Yes.
what a blessing.
What a long life. Her name was Grace Inlow, and
Mm.
she's known around the Detroit area. She's taught many generations violin and piano. So she was my brother's sister and my teacher, when one of our teachers when we were little. So she's just a blessing for so many. So I've done some performing, etc. This month, mainly for more private things like that. But I'm resting at the moment. But I will be, I'm looking at this now. I will be performing here in Detroit at the Music Hall.
Hmm.
Save the date. It's
Yes.
Friday, January 26th, 2024. It'll be a concert and book party for something, book called Love, War, and Jazz. So I'll be performing at the music hall for that. So yeah, check that out. And that's what I have coming up in more of the short term. I'm working on some other projects, writing and performing wise as well. So stay tuned. And I also want to wish you, the beautiful, brilliant Dr. Kim, and all of your listeners around the world and watchers a very blessed Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and just a blessed time and safety, blessings and safety for you and yours at this time of year.
Thank you, Dr. Angie. It's always a pleasure to have you. And thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. You know, you can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Bachelor Davis. You can hear this show Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and Wisdom. You can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you'll join us in the new year in 2024 for our next episode. Happy holidays. And remember to always be magnificent.